Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Simone?
Yes, I can.
Yes, awesome. Sorry, I'm like screaming at you, even though we're just talking backstage. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our episode 2. Let me put up our little slides here. Welcome. Here we go. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome, Catalyst Cat, and this is our episode 2 of our Nutritional Science podcast series. And today, hello, we have someone in our comments saying hello. I'm so excited. Today we're here with Dr. Simone Bayer, and I'm going to call her Simone now. And we're going to learn about the current landscape on kiwifruit research. Now, before we hop on in, we're going to go into some more rules and guidelines and talk about. So, first off, be kind, courteous, respectful to everyone, to each other, and in chat, please. Be curious and innovative in your questions and your answers. Be open-minded and compassionate towards yourself and others, because we might all be coming from different backgrounds, different interests, different knowledge, and we're here to learn and share with one another. We're not here to talk down or something. We're here to learn together. We're here to encourage a positive learning space for each other. And fourth, feel free to comment questions for the speaker. We will do our best to answer them. We love questions. We love comments, and we love it when you guys give us examples so we can broaden our horizons as to how to answer questions as well. And fifth, if you're not watching this live, you can still comment below. We will do our best to answer them in future episodes. It's always exciting to see questions, and it's exciting to have things to answer to and anticipate in the future. So thank you so much, everyone, for paying attention. I hope you can respect our rules and guidelines. Hello, Sambar Sauce. Hello, friends. Hello, everybody. Okay, I'm really excited. So, introduction to our speakers today. I'm Kyle Scott. I'm your biggest nerd and health advocate here, and this is my passion to do this whole podcast. And here is Dr. Simone Bayer. And last week I gave her an introduction, but today I'd love for her to do her own. But before we do, guys, everybody here, we have to say happy birthday because it's Simone's birthday today. So, happy birthday! Sorry, I just had to screen that out there. It is her birthday, and we are graced to have her. We're honored to have her here with us to talk about her favorite topic, kiwis. It's very weird to have someone like that. So I'm really excited to have Simone here. Simone, would you like to give us a little intro about yourself?
Okay. I'm a bit not hungover, but yeah, not quite awake yet. Sorry. So I'm Simone Bayer, born in Germany, but I'm now doing research in New Zealand. And as you may not know, we have summer here, so it's exactly summery and hot and amazing. And soon we have Christmas, as you do as well, but without the snow. So instead, we're celebrating it with ice cream and strawberries.
Oh, that sounds so nice. That sounds so nice.
Anyway, yeah, I'm a researcher, and I've studied nutrition science in Germany and pathology in New Zealand, and I'm now doing mostly clinical trials, but I'm also doing lab stuff. Today we're talking about a little bit about a systematic scoping review. So,
all right, let's go. I won't put you on the spot, Simone. Let's go. Before we are going to be talking about that, but before that, just to give everyone a preview or something as to what we did talk about last week, and to give you an idea of why we're talking about today. Last week on the last episode, we kind of went over this hierarchy of scientific proof, and really this hierarchy of where is the evidence and how powerful is the evidence, and what types of evidence are there, and as the audience or as everyday consumers, you and I, how do we assess the evidence for, statements that are made out there to any scientific evidence, or, expert says, or, reviews say this, or clinical trials say this, how do we assess that? And how do we know, just the evidence behind it, how strong it is, and what can we believe in? And how do we critically assess that information for ourselves so that we can make informed judgments, right? So last week we talked about unfiltered information, or actually starting from background information. Those are just anecdotal information. We're like, okay, well, I heard this, and therefore, this is my example. This is my anecdotal story as a physician, and that's kind of it's subjective. It is biased, right? And then you'll have your unfiltered information, or as our last week's example was, when you're going gold digging, or you have a sandbox and you're trying to dig for treasure, and it's everything. You have observational studies in there, you have cohort studies, you have a lot of things in there, but it's not filtered through to give you the best of the best yet, right? It's just a lot of information, but you still have to filter through. And then we go into our filter information, where you actually go in and then you actually appraise information, or you do experimental, not not observational, experimental studies on them in order to actually see if we as scientists can identify individual variables that's actually affecting our end results and being able to put all that data together. So, and then the very top, our little apex of our triangle, or not triangle, it is triangle, of our pyramid there is our systematic reviews. And that's the most powerful of powerful research papers, because that is where you have an objective researcher that's actually gathering all the research papers that everyone has done, everybody and their mother has done. And that is when you then go, okay, so all these papers, this paper had, 200 clients or 200 people, and this paper had X amount of people. And then how do we combine, see if we can combine and look at all their results and see if that result is replicated and, is still staying true across these different studies, despite them all technically being done by different people, and if they're all still telling us the same thing. And that's kind of that's how we ended up to where we are today, because here, that's where we're going today. So I'm going to give you a better example, because clearly I'm not the most well-spoken on what systematic reviews are. So here I've grabbed a quote here from, I am so sorry, I'm not going to butcher that name on a YouTube live stream.
Krishnan, I think.
Gopala Krishnan.
That's how I would pronounce it. But
Gopala Krishnan. Gosh, Simone, put me on the spot like this. Thank you. This is actually a paper that was talking about different types of research as well. So I will read this out to y'all. Systematic reviews are a summary. It's a summary of medical literature, usually the medical literature. You wouldn't see this in your I don't know what papers y'all are reading, or fiction papers, usually literature that uses explicit and reproducible methods to systematically search and then critically appraise to actually assess them, and then synthesize all of these different stories into whether or not they are concluding the same thing, and synthesize the results of multiple primary studies related to each other by using strategies that reduce biases and random errors. Right, so that is kind of where we're going today, and that is why the topic of this video is really about the landscape of kiwifruit research, because Dr. Bayer here, Simone here, has done a systematic research paper here. Topic and paper source here is called the habitual green kiwi fruit consumption associated with a reduction in, so many words, upper gastrointestinal symptoms, a systematic scoping review. And if those of y'all, anyone like to follow along, or if you're big nerds like me, so what you can do, okay, I guess you can't click on the link, but if you quite literally just Googled habitual green kiwi fruit consumption, or any of those words on Google, it is an open source article and you can access it as well. Highly recommend. Okay, I won't do it live, but highly recommend y'all to check it out. It's really easy to access, and that's the paper we're talking about today. So, are you excited? Because I'm really excited. And Simone, just want to let you know, I do also have the infographic open if you would like to reference that at any time in our talk. All right, the infographic that you did send. You know what? Why don't I just pop it on the screen so that everybody can see it too? I'll just pop it on the screen. Oh, no, I don't want to share screen. I don't want to stop screen. Let me open up just kidding. I can't share more than one thing. Never mind. I'll pop that on in a bit. So here we go. So Simone, can we start off about this before we get into the hard science? Because I'm a nerd, but doesn't mean everyone here is a nerd. And we got to entice them a little. We got to tell them why. We got to explain why you should care about this. Can you give us a little ethics and background information on kiwis? And why did you set out to do the systematic review? And what do you strive to achieve with this research? Show us the human. Show us the fun side. Show us, the you in this research.
So, I have a few years ago, I was actually asked to do a thing about kiwi fruit, because as I said, I work in New Zealand, and we produce lots of kiwi fruit, and the main company is Sesprey. And so pretty much they're the main growers and producers, and they've streamlined everything from soil to how to treat the plants and whatever. So if you're growing a Sesprey kiwi fruit, so the quality worldwide is very similar. So that's why you can also get kiwi fruit from Italy that are still Sesprey. And they pretty much have a research interest, because not only about growing, but also about selling it, because we all have an interest in our health. And in traditional Chinese medicine, kiwi fruit had a place in healing digestive disorders. And we also have something called health claims. Pretty much as a company, you can only market food for being positive for health if you have jumped to a lot of regulatory paperwork hoops. And one of these hoops is you have to show evidence, scientific and evidence that it works. And so just saying, well, the Chinese used it for the last 500 years, you know, these the FDA and the EFSA in Europe, they were like, we
That's
don't
not
care, you
enough.
have to show it.
Yeah.
And so from the get-go, pretty much, I think the first kiwi fruit paper came out 30 years ago or 40 years ago. And so since then, Sespri was always interested in research. And they had ages ago, they basically approached me and said, look, we know that it works, but we don't know how it works. Can you please write us a paper on how it may work? And
Mm.
that was my very first kiwi fruit paper. And researching all the compounds that are in the kiwi fruit, the nutritional health aspects, basically led to a little bit of a fascination. I have to admit, I never thought that a fruit can have is like it. Is like a kiwi fruit because the kiwi fruit, for example, all some of us might know it, can be a little bit allergenic. So people have like problems on the tongue, a little bit of
Mm.
swallows and itching, and they're like, "Ah, I don't like kiwi fruit because, yeah, it's unpleasant." So it's an allergenic. But on the other hand, it's a very healthy fruit because it has one of the highest vitamin C amounts in a fruit, higher than an orange.
Really?
Yep, pretty much.
Whoa.
Especially the gold kiwi fruit. The gold kiwi fruit is full. However, it also has an
Uh-huh.
active enzymatic enzyme that is able to digest proteins, similar to what pawpaws or papayas do, or what's the other one? Pineapple. And in addition, especially the green kiwi fruit also has some calcium oxalate crystals that are fine like needles, and they can actually damage the gut lining, especially in sheep. Um, that is pretty much the research where we came from.
We're
And
coming from really weird realms here.
yeah, it's so, and on top of it, it also has a specific fiber that has very high swelling capabilities and holds water more than apple fiber. And you literally, it is such a strange fruit if you think of it. Um, and it also tastes great. That's another thing.
It does taste
if
great.
you
It does
can,
taste great.
if you can have it. So I got a bit of obsessed about the kiwis. And they also have polyphenols and colors and some other
Mhm.
vitamins and minerals. And
You just became
so
obsessed.
yeah, that's how I started it. And because I think it was Che or Chan. I always get them confused. Sorry. They brought out this paper giving green kiwi fruit to constipated elderlies
Mhm.
in a rest home, and it helped them. And that was the first paper that pretty much showed that there is something true on kiwi fruit and helping with digestive issues.
Mhm.
And Sespri has done a lot of research, a lot of studies in different areas, showing that outcome, trying to find out what the underlying issue is or what the underlying method is, how it does so. Um, I th- I think we still haven't pinned it down to one ingredient.
Just takes time. This is science. It takes time. That's how
and
you
it's
know.
and because it's a fruit, so it's complex.
Mhm.
Because as I said, it has all these different things, and you cannot just take one out and give that to people. It's not as easy.
Really is.
There
Yeah.
have been other companies that basically used freeze-dried fruit and powders and pill form. And yes, it's still the same. It still works. Some have had it as juice. Yes, it still works. So even without the fiber, it still works. Um, anyway, so yeah, um, kiwi fruit, amazing stuff.
Oh,
Um,
good. Thanks for telling us your love story with kiwi fruits and how it began. It's
yeah,
it's it is a very cute love story. I hope at the end of the story, at the end of our stream or something, I'd love for you to share. I think on one of my first calls with Simone, we talked about actually the people of New Zealand as well and how they're trying to enter a global market. And I would love to, for, if you're comfortable sharing that
yeah,
story,
sure.
maybe at the end or something, because it is
Similar.
personal and it's very similar. Yeah.
So similarly, so it's not only Salisbury, of course, that produces stuff. We are, or New Zealand is known for also a lot of lamb meat and dairy. We have a lot of cows. Oh my goodness. However, we also have, we also have other trees and plants and fruits and vegetables. And we have a lot of agriculture because that is as we started as a country. Once pretty much the British invaded New Zealand and took over the government,
Hmm.
um, and pushed the local indigenous group, the Maori, pretty much a bit in the background. I mean, colonization, it's a sad fact. Um, but it also means that a lot of our producers and growers are Maori and work in these areas. And we have great produce, berries and pine bark and nuts. We're also growing macadamia nuts, and manuka honey is one of the honeys that is very high in antibiotic compounds.
I've seen that at Costco. No, sorry.
It's also very tasty.
I'm a big honey fan.
Yeah, no, manuka honey is really tasty. And yeah, it definitely has some antibiotic things.
Advantages, benefits.
So the government pretty much has put a little program out where they gave money to researchers and to help them connect with local growers and producers to give them a leg up and do research on them, on the products and clinical trials to help them get a health claim or be able to basically, find a niche in the worldwide market to use it. Um, and one of my favorite stories, I wasn't involved in the research though, I just heard it at the last thing. It's a drink called arepa. So it's similar. It sounds similar to Spanish, but it has nothing to do with Spanish. It's Tirio Maori. Um, and arepa is a drink that consists of black currants and pine bark extract. And they have been able to show with research that it increases blood flow in the brain. And so they market this drink as an alternative to coffee or to energy drinks, the Monster
Wow.
drinks and Red Bull and
Red
stuff, which is all
Bull.
very
Yeah.
high in caffeine, because
Mhm.
caffeine has some side effects, as we all know, like heart palpitations and a bit of a buzz.
Yeah.
and and yeah, no, they're a really good company, and they're marketed now, and they started to market it now overseas. I think primarily at the moment Australia. So I'm not really sure if the US can actually find it yet. But yeah, I think considering how good the product is and how good it works, because I have to admit, so I'm not paid or anything by Arepa. I wish I would be, but I really love the stuff, and so what I'm drinking here is not red wine.
Hey, it's your birthday, Simone. I'm not judging.
Would be great for breakfast. No, it's just because I've told earlier I'm a bit tired today. And so this helps me focus better than coffee, in my opinion.
Wow. Wow. I gotta be on the
And
lookout for
yeah,
that.
And so if we basically give these smaller companies a leg up, be it New Zealand
Mhm.
wide or even worldwide, it means that will be able to earn more money, and that money will help them build more nurseries and train more students and workers to work in the nurseries and doing all the processing of
Mhm.
the pine extracts and to grow. And that basically gives money back to the communities as well. Another one is, I think, a macadamia nut company here in New
Mhm.
Zealand. And they're pretty much, because they're Maori owned, they pretty much use the money they're making from the sale of their macadamia nuts for additional nurseries and additional training and for growers and pruners and everything involved. So
Really supporting an entire community there.
yes, so this is possible. So I highly recommend, if you're ever in the position to be able to, connect with the community,
Mhm.
a smaller community, it helps them because but you also have to adjure, you cannot come in as a savior to them and say, look, I have this idea. You pretty much have to involve them from the start.
Mm.
And like, hey, for example, hey, you guys growing almonds, want to check out what's in those almonds, how it makes them better for in comparison, and what health benefits you get from it, and have them
Mhm.
involved. If the worst that happens is they pretty much say no and don't talk to you ever again. So,
Mhm. Well,
but
that's the worst. That's nothing compared to the benefits that research can bring to their communities and their products. Speaking of using their products, we actually have a question in our comments right now,
Mhm.
Simone. We have a Shabbat bop here. Let me pop it on the screen so everyone can see it. We have a question asking, does using their fruit mean you're sponsored by them, or does that mean there's a conflict of interest in the research when you get the product from it? Like, how does that work for you?
um, I think we've talked about being open about your conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, now for this, it's they also so you are right. There is a conflict of interest in research. Uh, the nice thing about Sasbury is that they pretty much give the researchers um, wiggle room.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much how it works usually is that contractually, so you write a report. So it can go both ways. So it could be that Sasbury approaches you and said, "Hey, you worked for us in the past. Um, how about I pay you and you figure out if this is true?" Um, and then you basically write something and you say either no, it's not true, and yes, it's true. That are the both outcomes, or you can find out yes, but it's complicated. um, and there is of course a bit of bias, but again, I
Mm-hmm.
have wiggle room. I wouldn't have it was likely that the paper wouldn't have been published if I wouldn't have found anything.
Mm.
However, I was still paid.
So you're paid to do the
Yeah,
research, but they
I'm
have,
paid to do the research,
yeah.
and but they may have the last word on some of the outcomes.
Mm.
Um, but they're not I'm not paid for basically saying buy Sesame kiwi fruit, because I'm saying eat kiwi fruit. I don't really care where you got them from.
That's true. That's pretty important. That's a good distinction to make.
um but I'm always open with it. It is always in the
Mm-hmm.
papers, and we also state exactly how the company that worked with us
Mm-hmm.
influenced the research. It's always in the statement below. It's pretty much they haven't written it, I have written it. So they don't use my name, I use theirs.
That makes sense.
So it's a lot about power. Um, I have never worked on a board for them, or I'm not
Mhm.
involved, and I'm not directly paid by CESPRI. How it works is pretty much CESPRI pays the university, and the university pays my salary. Does that make sense? Kind of.
I think it makes sense. We'll give them a time to think about an answer. That makes
No,
sense.
no, it
Thank
is,
you for
but
being very transparent.
no, but it's true. The thing is that we need it as well because A, it's their product, because it's consistent. Because if you consider, for example, if we stay now with the kiwi fruit, if you have an intervention and you give something to people, the fruit have to be consistent. They have to be the same size, the same makeup. You cannot just basically give one part of people kiwi fruit from Italy or kiwi fruit from China and kiwi fruit from New Zealand and
Mhm.
think it might be the same outcome. It is
Mhm.
very likely that it's just a local thing or an seasonal thing. And
Yeah.
so for us being in New Zealand, the ideal collaborator, of course, would be CESPRI because they're just here. If I would do a study in Italy, I would go to the Italian growers, or if I would be a Chinese researcher,
Mhm.
it's very unlikely that I would basically get CESPRI to not only pay me, but also, ship the fruit across the Pacific and,
Oh, jeez.
to get that.
Yeah.
So it's important to have a look how much influence was in it. So
Yeah.
that's a really good, important question.
Yeah. Our guest here says, "Thank you for answering. I knew the question was going to be complicated, so I appreciate the entire explanation, and I wholeheartedly agree. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Simone, for being so open about that. And I think our next slide might give our audience more of an idea as well. So, oh, I switched screens, but this is the Zasper we keep talking about, y'all.
Please.
If any of you eat kiwis, I know you're eating this. So,
So the thing is that so earlier you all talked about the ethics, and I have to admit that, as I said, I'm a bit obsessed with kiwi fruit, and I've worked for them before because they basically paid me to write this report, and they liked the report, and so they basically asked me to publish. I did not get additional, so I got money for my time, and they were also so if we publish a paper, the journals actually ask us for money.
we talked about that predatory publishing.
Yeah. So, um, in this case, the decision was pretty much, do we just publish it as normal, which is cheaper for us, or do we publish it open source so everybody can access it and look at it and be critical of it? And
Mhm.
Sespri was so kind to basically pay for these additional fees,
The open source fees.
the open source fees.
Wow.
And
That's
that is a very
incredible.
important thing because especially the higher up your hierarchy, the more transparent you have to be. And for example, before I even published the scoping review, I already published the protocol. And that is really important because you have to make sure that what you're doing hasn't been done before.
Mhm.
And also that if someone is pretty much critical of my outcomes, which is fair, they can pretty much use the protocol and follow every step that I did and see if they come to the same conclusion.
Mhm.
And that is
Wait,
why a review is so high in the hierarchy because there are very strict rules how scoping review looks and has to be done.
yeah. Then in that case, Simone, since this is our literally next slide, can you kind of go over, what methods you use to collect and analyze data for this study? And would it help for me to have the infographic open for you?
I have it in memory because I did all the work, so it's not that necessary. So, for example, if you do a systematic review, there are guidelines.
Mhm.
And in this case, they're called the PRISM guidelines. And so pretty much the first thing I did was go to the PRISM website and look up the guidelines and follow them step by step. Um, and so pretty much you do a research and you sit down and you basically think, okay, what are the search words you need? How do I find the papers that I'm interested in? In this case, in this specific case, because we were looking for gut symptoms or upper gastric symptoms, so I knew that all the papers in humans, so all the papers pretty much done in pigs or cows, or that would be out. I also knew that I'm not looking for allergenicity or inflammation, so I knew these kinds of studies would be out. I also knew that I was not interested in lab research because it's upper GI symptoms.
Mhm.
So I needed to look at clinical trials. And so pretty much my search words were pretty much GI, digestion, gastrointestinal symptoms,
Mhm.
kiwi fruit, especially gold and green kiwi fruit, because there are way more kiwi fruit around the world than you can imagine. There are some that are berry sized that you can literally like little berries. There are ones that have a different color. Um, and a lot, and just to say, so basically, I looked at clinical trials, digestion, kiwi fruit, and
Yeah.
pretty much those were my rules that I was looking for. And the rules say you have to look at 3 different databases. So the databases I used was PubMed, which is the medical database,
Mhm.
Embase, which is more nutritional focused, and Medline, which is a little bit, which also has access to PubMed, but is a bit bigger. Also has some background information. Um, and then you get all these hits. So a lot of papers, like 503 different papers.
Oh my Lord. And that's being so picky too.
And that is so being so picky. So what you then have to do is pretty much read through the abstracts, so the summaries, and figure out, is that paper actually useful or not. And so that is pretty much then the screening record.
Mhm.
And you, just for an example, one of the more funny papers that I saw is pretty much so there is a machine called MRI. We may know that large machine that makes pictures in black and white from your insides. And if a hospital or a company gets a new MRI machine, they pretty much have to calibrate it. And usually calibration is not done with humans.
Really?
And there have been a couple of papers that came up in my search where they pretty much used kiwi fruit as a stand-in for human testicles.
What? Wait. You can't just wait. What? Wait. What? What did I just hear? What do you mean they use kiwi fruits as a stand-in for testicles? What?
Apparently, they have the same size and form.
Wait, what?
So they put it pretty much on that little slide they have. And I have not read the papers in detail, so I cannot tell you what other fruits and vegetables they used for other organs. But yeah,
Either
those
I
papers
don't know
came
the
up.
size of a kiwi fruit or I don't know the size of a testicle, but what? I'm gonna kind of mark this for over 18 now. Simone. Like, what do you mean by putting as a stand? Okay, I need to Google this paper sometime.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's just pretty much you have to basically calibrate your machine somehow, and if you're not allowed to use a human male, yeah.
Oh, what? Fascinating. Okay, we're getting off topic again.
You're getting a topic again. Yeah.
Okay, Simone. Science is great. Science really is great. Someone commented that's amazing. Hopping over. Uh,
Yeah, and they publish it, so it's apparently a new idea, and it works apparently really good. So, then you also kick out all the conference abstracts because conference abstracts are limited and not quite done yet, and you don't get much numbers of them until you pretty much have narrowed it down to a certain amount of papers. And I think in my case it was like 70-ish.
yeah.
And then those are the papers you pretty much sit down and read, and then
Mhm.
you basically extract the information you need, which are the location, the authors, how many participants were they, how many were male, how many were female, were those people healthy or unhealthy. Um, um,
It's a lot of work. Let me see. I
uh,
think in your
yes,
slides you said in total, you identified. You started with, I think, yeah, right here on slide 2, right here. You started
503. And then
503
we also identified two unpublished reports.
Mm-hmm.
Unpublished reports is pretty much science or work that has been done but hasn't been published yet. Um, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there was a company conflict, that they
Mm-hmm.
didn't like the outcome. It could also very well mean that um, they didn't have time yet to completely analyze the data, um, because a clinic, analyzing data takes time. It could also mean that they handed it in, they wrote the paper up and handed it into a journal, and the journal pretty much looked at it and was like, yeah, no, that's not our scope, or you don't have enough participants.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I mean, we're New Zealand, we're a little country. We only have like 8 million people over our two little islands, so we're quite small. And so, I mean, with our towns, so the town that I'm in, it has like 150,000 people in it. Um, so I'm quite happy if for my clinical trial I get 70 participants, and that's a really good number already. Um, However, compared to some of the US studies, where you have
Mm-hmm.
access to way larger cities and way larger medical centers and study centers and
It's different.
universities, you know, those clinical trials have like 500, 600 people in it. And so some of the journals, they look at it and they're like, 70 people, that's not enough. We don't like that, and reject the paper.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why publishing takes time. So you basically then rewrite it and ask a different paper, maybe in Europe, if they want to publish it. And so it goes through some papers until it's published. The good part is that your paper will get better over time, because every time you basically hand it in and they reject it, they will also tell you exactly the reasons why they reject it, and they will criticize it and say, have you tried this statistical method? Have you looked at this data? Can you please include this particular aspects? Um, and so your paper will get better with every time you rewrite it.
Every iteration.
Anyway, going off topic again.
It's all good. It happens. We just like it so much.
uh, so yeah, after I kicked out all the duplicates, because some papers were in all three databases, some papers were just in two, I narrowed it down to 70 articles. And so I checked the articles for the eligibility, like, do they have all the important bits that I need? Pretty much were they on GI symptoms and
GI
on
symptom.
Kiwifruit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and those were the ones that I then read. And so pretty much, as I said, I rejected 31 articles because some of them were abstracts from the same reports that I included anyway, and some of them had absolutely no relevance to upper GI symptoms. For example, they were on skin or on allergenicity
Mm-hmm.
or on the microbiome. I'm like, I like the microbiome, but I needed symptoms, you know,
Actual symptoms. Then, I
actual
mean,
symptoms.
if so, it sounds like you did find a lot. And I'm sure all of the audience, and me included, since I do eat a lot of kiwi fruits. We're not being sponsored, but if you want to sponsor me, I'd be happy to. But I will hold on to kiwi fruits. I would love to ask then, Simone, can you share with our audience here, what were the most important findings and how do they contribute to our current knowledge? Like, what do we
So the
not know
first,
that we discovered?
so as I mentioned, most of the study, like literally all of the studies, were done on constipation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, my review was not only a systematic review, but a scoping review. So scoping review means that I was looking for evidence for a specific thing that have to come back to the anecdata. So pretty much these clinical trials that have been run all over the place, including the US and Spain and Japan, some of them basically had this anecdotal findings that their patients came back and said, actually, it also I have less heartburn, or I feel overall really good, and it helped me digest better. And that was pretty much the reason why we had to go and look. Is that true? Is there evidence? Can we actually say it that kiwifruit helps with upper GI symptoms? So good question, Shabob Bob. What does upper GI symptoms mean? Um, in this case, we know that the GI is different, has different sections. We have the esophagus, which is swallowing issues, but we were not looking at swallowing issues. We have lower GI symptoms, which would be constipation, diarrhea. And then we have upper GI symptoms. That pretty much includes stomach, pretty much everything around the stomach. Now, we are interested in functional issues, so not bad diseases. And again, there comes the difference between a disease and a disorder that I have mentioned last time. A disease is when you really see stuff. So, for example, diverticulitis, you see it.
Mm-hmm. You see
It's
the little outpouching, quite literally.
bleeding. You
Mm-hmm.
see that. So that was the things that we are not interested in because we are interested in the functional things where you have symptoms with no clear underlying issue. And so this would indeed include nausea and vomiting, dyspepsia or indigestion, and there are other things like abdominal pain and abdominal bloating, which is a bit of a difficult thing because I say difficult because we are also limited to how to measure these. And so if the study has not used specific questionnaire to cover this area,
It can
it's
be
really
quite
hard to
subjective.
find
Mm-hmm.
because the knowledge or the symptoms or the result has not been collected. And because of most of the studies have been done on constipation and constipation only, it was really hard to find detailed information on upper GI symptoms, anything else that is not constipation or diarrhea. And so how does this contribute to our current knowledge? We actually found that thankfully a lot of people actually asked a lot of studies were actually asking their patients additional questions like, how did you like the treatments that we tested on you? And why do you, that is more qualitative research, how did you like it? How did you feel? However, that is very hard to put a number on. And so in the paper, I have these two sections where I said, look, these are the papers where it's hard to put a number on because I couldn't compare it because they either made their own questionnaire or used a questionnaire that hasn't been used before. And in the end, I was able to identify 5 studies that have been done consistently with the same with the same questionnaire. And luckily, that questionnaire has pretty much upper GI symptoms and lower GI symptoms in it, which was really great and helpful. So the questionnaire the questionnaire in question. Oh, that sounds stupid. It's the gastrointestinal symptom rating scale. It's 15 questions on pretty much how did this affect you? Did it affect you severely? Did it affect you? And it pretty much imagine like in the last 7 days, did you suffer from diarrhea? Was the diarrhea severe, moderate, or not present at all? And these answers then have the numbers between 1 and 5, and certain questions linked to the same symptom or the same symptom area. And so you have all these different domains. One of the domains, of course, being constipation. So that's why all these studies actually used it. But some of these questions actually asked for reflux, pain, and indigestion. And what we found is that, yes, there is some evidence, and I say some, that green kiwi fruit can help with that symptom. And as here's the summary pretty much. And the thing, another thing, complicated matter is that not all of the studies were done on the same green kiwi fruit. Some of them also included gold kiwi fruit. So now I have to talk about gold kiwi fruit quickly. Sorry.
No, please. I don't think a lot of us even knew about the differences.
So the gold kiwi fruit tastes sweeter. It's not as tart. It has less of these crystals. So meaning that some people that absolutely hate because of the feeling they get from clean kiwi fruit are able to tolerate gold. The gold kiwi fruit is a bit bigger and has, as I mentioned earlier, a really high amount of vitamin C, like really, really high. And until a few years back, the gold kiwi fruit did not contain enzymes. As I mentioned, the green kiwi fruit has this digestive enzyme. Now, what happened is that because of climate change, there was a fungal infection called, I think it's PSA. I don't know what it stands for, and it pretty much wiped out gold kiwi fruit worldwide.
Oh wow!
And Sespri, however, had some plants already in the making that had a little bit of the enzyme in it. So they were gold kiwi fruit, but with the active enzyme a little bit. And they were immune to this disease. And so they survived. So nowadays, the gold kiwi fruit that you get all have 25% of the enzymatic activity that the green kiwi fruit does.
So they're all like hybrids in a sense.
They're all hybrids. I mean, kiwi fruit or fruit in general get made up and mixed and grown for specific conditions anyway. But that also meant that certain papers where they said, "Oh, gold kiwi fruit doesn't do anything," I kind of could not include those results because again, I had to look also at the type of kiwi fruit they were looking at. So yeah, in the end, I had some evidence that especially green kiwi fruit helps with pain. However, abdominal pain covers both areas, which means that if we want to say it helps with upper GI pain, we need to make studies that look specifically at upper GI pain. We also have some really good results for indigestion. But in this case, what I say, the evidence of high quality means that it was clinical trial, it was a large number of people, it was done with the correct method and the correct questionnaire. But if it's only 2 studies or 3 studies, it's not enough yet. So pretty much that is why I say here evidence is of high quality, but the number of studies needs to be expanded. And again, I would really love to see studies that are done for upper GI only. So we don't recruit just people with lower GI symptoms. Because again, you have to make sure that the people or the people you're looking at are the right for your study. Because you
Well,
painted wrong.
so what you're saying, I'm just looking at this infographic more than. So it's funny because you even stated here that ulcers, one study, ulcers, rats fed kiwi fruit have reduced ulcers, but evidence is still lacking. So is that what you mean when you say, you need to expand more research and
Yeah, so
you would.
pretty much you have one study that used rats and they gave them fruit and they basically said, oh yeah, the wound heals. And you're like, yeah, nice.
Really? The
But
wound
it's just
heals.
one, it's just one study. It's not enough to basically say, hey, we can now use green kiwi fruit to treat ulcers. It's not enough. And pretty much what I did was not a systematic review, but a systematic scoping review. It was pretty much just to look at it and say, do we have enough evidence, or do we not have enough evidence? And what I can say is, overall, there may be a little bit of truth.
There
Yeah,
may improve upper GI symptoms. Yeah.
but we cannot say it for sure at this point. We need more data.
Then, Simone, so right on the slide right here at the bottom, you do say these are multiple mechanisms that. So when we say mechanism, I'm trying to say this in a way that everyone can understand. You're suggesting different ways of how kiwi fruits can be improving our upper GI is gastrointestinal or upper GI symptoms,
Mhm.
and you have 4 of these. Can you actually briefly explain, what do those 4 mean?
So as I mentioned, green kiwi fruit and now gold as well have this enzyme actinidin.
Oh, that's actinidin. Okay, perfect.
And that's the enzyme. It's called actinidin. It comes from the name of the Latin name for kiwi fruit, which is actinidia or actinesia. And Actinesia chinensis is gold, and Actinesia deliciosa is green.
That's a lot of
Um,
knowledge.
um, that stuff, because for one, it's a protein. It's an enzyme. It helps with protein digestion. So meaning that if you eat lots of meat and as a dessert you have a kiwi fruit, you might feel less full faster. Really good for Christmas.
Be able to eat faster. All right, everyone, keep that in mind
because
for
because
Christmas.
it's pretty much, it gives you an additional digestive boost.
Mm-hmm.
However, it may not be the only reason how it does so, because we have very complicated ways in our digestive system. Some cells have receptors that get activated by proteases. And meaning that because we know that actinidin stays active pretty much the whole way, it could very well be that the kiwi fruit directly talks to our immune system or our digestive system and increases and or decreases some inflammatory pathways. But we're not quite sure yet. Another thing is called CRISPR. It's pretty much a little peptide signal. And there were some, I think they're in Eastern Europe. Not quite sure where they are, if they're in Belgrade or not. A great group, and they do a lot of laboratory research on this specific peptide. However, they're the only group that did it so far. So again, it could very well be that it is true only for what they see there. So we have to wait until other groups have done similar studies to basically say that it helps. Because so what did they find? They find that in certain laboratory cell models, this peptide, when they add that to the cell culture, changes water influx and exflux.
Huh.
And that can change a lot of things. Um, but they also found that it may, what is another thing? Um, it changed some immune pathways. So it could very well be that it's the enzyme or the peptide that is a result from the enzyme being active in the kiwi fruit
Oh,
changes
Simone, the
digestion. It's really,
scientist.
really hard. It's really, really hard. That's why I'm really sorry about this. Um,
All right. Sorry, this the scientist in me. Now I'm just really curious. Now I'm like really curious about actually CRISPR and looking at what does it do because so trying to rein in a little bit for everyone. Peptides are basically they're the building blocks of proteins and enzymes. When we reference enzymes for actinidin is an enzyme, and enzymes are a type of protein, right? So then, in a sense, it's like actinidin is like a type of enzyme, is an enzyme. Enzymes can all enzymes are proteins, not all proteins are enzymes. And then
yes.
proteins themselves are made up of peptides. Peptides are the building blocks that make up proteins. So now I'm curious about CRISPR itself. And well, because I did more cellular research. Now I'm curious because technically by knowing its makeup, you can kind of anticipate its molecular actions and what it's doing, how it plays a role. And now I'm really curious about what it actually is, and I want to Google it. That's really interesting. But why? Okay, I don't know if you're the right person to ask this, but then why did they isolate CRISPR on its own? Because I would anticipate there to be more than one peptide present, right? How would it? I
It's
will
pretty
look into
much,
it.
I can tell you, because as I said, I've read most of the papers around. Um, so kiwi fruit is a fruit, okay? So most of what it's in there is fiber and water, right? But also these fruit have and minerals and vitamins, but they also have proteins. A protein is made out of peptides, and a peptide is made of amino acids. And amino acids are the Lego blocks, pretty much. So, and the main protein, if you basically run the whole thing through one of these mass specs and stuff, the main protein in the kiwi fruit is actinidin.
Mm-hmm.
However, down the line, there are other smaller proteins, and one of these is CRISPR. That's pretty much it. It's just basically, I can't remember if it was a part of the same pre-protein of actinidin, and once it's basically active, it basically loses its tail, and that is CRISPR.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite sure. So one of the things about fruit is the reason why it has actinidin is to protect itself from diseases like the fungi disease that wiped out the gold kiwi fruit. So it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense that it has an aggressive enzyme that cuts down other proteins like bacterial proteins. That's
Mm-hmm.
their defense mechanism.
Wow, that's scary, actually.
It's most of our secondary health benefits we get from secondary plant ingredients are based on this because it's defense mechanisms. I mean, for example, red colors in fruits, um, the nice and berries and blackberries and black currants and
Mm.
stuff, they're pretty much sun protection.
Wait, what? What do you mean there's sun protection? Like the beta carotene? Like what are we? What?
Yeah,
Oh, it's vitamin A. It's
yeah,
retinol.
yeah. So because the plants evolved with us and we evolved with the plants. So
Whoa.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, that is
Okay,
CRISPR.
we're gonna get tracked. Okay, this is
Okay,
fascinating. Fascinating. Wow. Wow. Okay. Forget me when we're distracted. Thank you.
And
That's
another thing, so the last thing is that we have a lot of studies done on animals
mhm,
and ex vivo or out of the body, so pretty much in lab tubes, on fermentation and microbiome. Because, as I said, one of the largest things in kiwi fruit is fiber, and the
mhm.
kiwi fruit fiber is very unique and very weird. Um, and so they did all these fermentation experiments, and we all know that our gut bacteria reacts to what fiber we eat. And so one of
Mhm.
the ideas is actually that it could very well be that it's not the kiwi fruit itself, it's pretty much the
It's
fiber that affects the upper GI, changing the microbiome to be a more positive for the human being.
yeah.
That could be it.
I have a question, Simone.
Yes.
I've been wanting to ask this. I kept forgetting to. I'm pretty sure a lot of our audience probably want to ask this too. But then I completely agree. I eat a lot of fruits, veggies for the fiber, because one of my professors once emphasized to me that the one of the largest risk factors for our elderly populations is the lack of sufficient fiber in our diets. Like we get too much sodium, too much meats, actually, too much carbohydrates, but not nearly enough fiber. And that's actually, especially with the increased amounts of processed foods we're getting with cakes and bread and everything, a lot of the thing is processed. We're not actually getting as much fiber as we need to. But I'm getting off topic. So my question is, so then with kiwis, are we supposed to eat the skin?
No.
No, wait, what? No, wait, what? Why?
Um,
But you just
most of
said
this
fiber.
most of the studies have been done without the skin.
Ah.
However, now again, science is complicated. I'm really sorry. I'm always this but. um, so especially green kiwi fruit, the skin is hairy and not really nice to eat. Yeah, so don't feel bad if you don't. Most of the amazing fiber in kiwi fruit is actually inside, so it's okay.
Really?
But gold kiwi fruit have a different skin, so they're
Uh-huh.
less hairy. They're quite smooth. And so there are people that actually prefer to eat the skin with them because that means they don't have to even use a spoon or a knife or anything. They just eat it like an apple.
Sweet. That's
I'm very
sweet.
impressed by these people.
I'm very lazy. Are you impressed by my laziness?
So yeah, I personally I'm not a fan of kiwi fruit skin, but there has been one study that is included in that on gold kiwi fruit where they basically looked at um, gold kiwi fruit with and without skin.
And drum roll, drum roll. What was the finding?
The interesting bit is that in that case, I think the one where they had the skin on had a higher outcome on yeah, so pretty much where it said gold kiwi fruit. I didn't really say that part on that in that thing. So pretty much the when you ate the skin of gold kiwi fruit, it had a bigger impact statistically on the outcome and on the GI symptom
Wait,
than
sorry,
without.
Simone. Wait. You keep saying greater outcome. What does that mean? Does that mean there's a higher reduction in upper GI symptoms?
Yes, in that
So
particular
it is
study, yes.
good to eat the skin?
But again, the
Oh.
but. The thing again, it was just one study, and
Uh-huh.
you have to think. The skin that is quite a large amount or a large part of the fruit. So the people that did not eat the skin in weight ate less of the kiwi fruit.
Huh.
So it could very well be dose dependent. That
Uh,
it's not necessarily related to the skin, but dose dependent.
of the kiwi fruit itself, of the fruit.
So basically, if you ate instead of two kiwi fruit, if you ate three of the gold kiwi fruit, would that have the same outcome as eating two kiwi fruit without the skin?
Simone, will you do this research? Because I am now very invested in this. I bring this up because I when I took nutrition, where I learned about all the fiber and everything, that was a hot topic. We learned about the requirement to eat fruits and our vegetables with the skin, because a lot of the nutrients were in the actual skin itself. But then, in my graduate research, we were looking at heavy metals toxicity. We're looking at pathogens and interactions. And then we noticed that in fruits, a lot of heavy metals, that's where they accumulate, because they want to protect the meat, the actual flesh inside. So the heavy metal actual accumulate in the skin itself. So I am very curious about this. I'd be curious to know the relative benefits or harm of eating the skin, whether or not the benefits of the fiber and the nutrients in the skin outweighs any heavy metals, that accumulation in the skin. But okay, I'm not Zespri though. I can't sponsor this research, but I'd love to know one day.
Yeah, I can't. I also cannot comment on what sprays they're using and how that is affecting
Uh-huh.
crops and things. All I can say is pretty much the vitamins, and most of the research has been done on the inside, so you're good if you don't eat the skin. It's fine. And if you like it, Shabu Bob, go ahead.
If you like a Shabbat, go ahead. Oh yeah, Shabbat says, "Yay,
The other
go
thing,
kiwi fruit! It's healthy to eat."
so yes, it's preference. And one other things that I want to mention, especially about eating skin or not of a kiwi fruit. A kiwi fruit is just one part of your diet.
Mm, good point.
So if you want to know about your the balance, and the important part is the balance, right? The balance of your diet. Um, Stop worrying so much. As long as you eat the whole balance, it will be balanced. Because if you only eat green lettuce, even though it's healthy, you miss out on a lot of other things that are
Mm-hmm.
important. And so again, the dose is the important bit here.
Mm-hmm.
And eat as many colors of the rainbow.
I try that. I definitely do. I try to get as
Exactly.
many
And
colors in the rainbow as I can.
yes, and also, don't diss chocolate. Chocolate is very important for mental health.
Simone, thank you for saying that. I
It's
suddenly remember I
Christmas.
have so much chocolate downstairs that I really want
Don't
to eat
feel
them.
bad. It's worse. It's actually worse if you stress about your food.
That's true. That's very true.
As long as you eat a
Wow.
balanced diet, it's fine.
Everything in moderation. Everything in
Exactly.
moderation.
Exactly. I don't want you to overly eat kiwi fruit because again, it's a very acidic fruit. It might actually give you ulcers if you eat too much of it. We don't know.
Wow. Okay, I'll try not to eat too many. All right, audience, don't use us as an excuse. This is not medical advice. Please don't eat a bunch
No.
of kiwi fruits and get ulcers. We did not advocate for that. We're
No.
advocating
Everything in moderation, everything in balance.
everything in moderation. Indeed, indeed. Good lord. Let me pop back over to my slide real quick, because we had another question I wanted to ask. Did you have any other? I mean, you you honestly shared with us so many different interesting findings, but were there any controversial findings you would like to share, or any implications that you weren't anticipating in all the papers you read?
One that one what is really hard is that it's really hard to compare studies if everybody makes up their own questionnaire.
True.
Because so yeah, that was very hard. Another thing that I also wrote in the paper is that usually, according to the guidelines, you have to have two people that read the same paper and then write the same papers and then comment on them together. Here it was just me. So, and I might have bias because I absolutely love kiwi fruit, but it's stated in the paper that there is this bias, definitely,
Mhm.
because I didn't have another person to do this with me. Um, and implications is just in general, we need more funding in the world of food research overall.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of us get carried away with single ingredient studies,
Mhm.
but food is more complicated than that. It's processing, it's heating, it's personal preferences, allergies. You know, diet is complicated, and I think we should focus more on the whole fruit, even though it is hard to blind our participants and get that bias out.
Mhm. I agree. It's
So that is pretty much my main comment on the whole thing.
Thank you for sharing. When I have lots and lots of money, I will definitely throw funding to find out more about the skin of kiwi fruits. Until then. Good
Right?
lord.
Who knows? Maybe actually the people in Messe University are doing already some studies on on kiwi fruit skin with their pig model. So
Yeah, you never know with their pig
we
model.
don't know. Yeah, they have this. They're using a lot of pigs over there. They're
Uh-huh.
good fermentation studies and things, and they're really good.
Wow. I don't know. I'm curious about these fermentation studies because, well, I'm curious though. In terms of so earlier, let me pop back over to our slide here. You mentioned on slide 3, the bottom right corner, the 13 studies of fermentation stuff. Um, how do they know that the fiber effects on shifting the microbiome um is specific to kiwis, or if it's just fiber in general?
Um, by comparing it to other types of fiber. For example, you can compare it to cellulose, which is a non-digestible fiber, or you can basically compare it to wheat bran, which is a
Mhm,
very hard to digest fiber.
mhm,
You can compare it most of the time we compare it to psyllium. Psyllium or psyllium fiber is a plant product um, that has a soluble fiber.
mhm,
So they are soluble and insoluble fibers, and the soluble ones are usually easier to digest.
mhm,
And it's used for both constipation and diarrhea quite effectively. It's a medical product and a supplement.
mhm,
And so in most of the studies, when they want to see the difference or if there's a difference between fiber types, they use that, especially in humans.
comparison. That makes sense. That makes sense. Huh.
Um, and so the fermentation studies, again, if you think about the hierarchy pretty much and the pyramid, you can do the clinical trials, which is giving people either psyllium or wheat bix or wheat bran or cornflakes or whatever, and the other group kiwi fruit, and then see how that affects the outcome or the stool
Mhm.
in that case. That would
Um,
be a human study, which I'm going to
yeah,
talk about a lot next time in January.
I'm excited.
Um, or you can do that in animals because animal feed, you can control that,
Oh,
whereas the human diet, you can't really control.
yeah, a lot of confounding factors there. A lot of
Yes.
confounding factors.
Then you can do that, especially you can do it in mice or in rats or in pigs. But you can also nowadays do the fermentation stuff um, pretty much outside of the body. So you mash up your kiwi fruit, and then you have kiwi fruit pulp, and you put that together with some stomach acids and stomach peptide and enzymes, and wait a certain amount of time, and then you measure what comes out, and then you add bacteria in it, and look what's coming out in form of gas or solid or liquid products, and then you can analyze that and see how it affects it. Or you can have bacterial cultures and pipette these extracts after digesting and look which of the bacteria survive or not.
Wow. I've always
So
been really fascinated with microbiome research. Just, a
very
fun
complicated.
fact. Sorry, I did not mean to totally just interrupt. But I have to share this fun fact. When I was
Please.
in university, one of my friends worked in the night lab, and they did microbiome research, and they were looking at cheeses. They were looking at cheese and fermentation and stool, and okay, this might be a little gross, a little TMI, but I believe they were purchasing stool from students because they were trying to gather a large population in order to do their research. And I gotta go back and find their final papers. But microbiome research is really cool. I I really hope we can learn more. I'm trying to get some different speakers on microbiome research. That'd be really cool to learn about, Simone. I'm really excited. Are you going to be talking about any microbiome research in your paper, in your next paper, actually?
I might not go into detail because it's not done by me, but I can hint at some things because, again, I know a few things that have been published, but others
Hmm.
have not quite been published.
Hmm.
So I have to be very careful what I'm saying because, especially about the clinical trial that I'm talking about that I did,
Uh,
it's still in write-up mode. So basically, they're writing, they have analyzed the samples, they're writing their papers, and pretty much sending that out to the journals in hope to get it published.
let me know.
And
Otherwise, I can always reach out to the people that you know that actually did those trials, and we can get them hooked up. It'd be so fun to see a whole story, like come full circle of everything, right? And before I forget, I'm gonna hop on over, just because get this. We went over time, but we're having fun, so we're gonna keep going real quick. But for to sum it up, oh wait, I think it's got no, it's fine. We did implications, and I showed you guys all the infographics. That was one with Zespri. And last but not least, we have one important takeaway by Simone here, and that systematic reviews are very hard work. What was it? 513 papers. That was a lot of papers she
and
went through.
that's actually a small amount of papers.
Good lord.
If you think about someone doing a clinical a systematic review on COVID, just open up PubMed and put up COVID-19 in the search thing, and then find out how many papers you get.
Oh, now I'm really tempted to quite literally do that. You know what, y'all? Just because we're doing this live, why don't we do that live and show you? Let's test that. Let's test this. This is the fun part of live streaming. We can test exactly what we're discussing right now. Let's go. Let's see. PubMed. PubMed. This is PubMed, y'all. Everyone, this is a search engine for a lot of literature for medicine, engineering, quite literally anything. And then let's look up COVID. Oh, I need to share a paper with you, Simone. But yeah, so literally, if you look, oh my lord, wait. Oh my lord, yeah, 318,000 results. Wow, yeah, there's a lot of papers. Wow. Oh lord.
Yeah, of course you would have more than one search word to
Yeah,
limit it down, but
to limit it down more. Yeah, yeah.
basically, yeah. But
Wow.
that's just an idea of how you start, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to read all of these.
I'll try not to. I'll try not to. Let me hop right back to our slides. Chrome tab. Here we go. All right, peeps. All right, well, so I said a lot of papers. So Simone put a lot of effort into. It takes a lot of time to do. Simone, how long did it take you to actually write that systematic review paper, or to go through all the literature research?
I think if I remember right, I did it pretty much 3 months.
Oh my lord, 3 months of
Pretty
just
much 3 months full time.
3 months full time. Someone give this brilliant woman a gold star sticker. More than just a gold star sticker. That's amazing. That's full time, y'all. That's a lot of reading, and this is the side of science and
Yeah,
literature
you
that
you
people
come
don't
up with
see.
the, as I mentioned, you come up with the search functions, the protocol, then you have the list, then you basically have to build a database and put in all the bits of information you're reading, and then you start extracting the details, and then you also have to get an appointment with a statistician, and then you have to write it all up,
Good Lord.
and then you
But
have to get it published. So
but at least, as we discovered last week and today, they're very high up in our pyramid of evidence, right? Our hierarchy. So this is what happens. You have all these papers, and you have someone like Simone that then goes through all of them and evaluates them for their validity and whether or not they're related, etc. So it's very high up in the power of evidence. But she says the devil is in the details. The devil is truly in the details of what you're reading. So it's a lot of work, everyone. It's phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing today with us, Simone, about your work. And I'm so excited to let you all know that Simone's coming back for episode 3 next year, 2020. Oh my gosh, it's going to be 2023. That's terrifying. But she's coming back in January for episode 3 on her actual clinical research on 2 gold kiwi fruits a day. Yes, Simone.
just one small thing. I think we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we mentioned smoothies, right?
Yes.
Kiwi fruit smoothies are amazing, plus just don't put dairy in.
Why not?
Because as I mentioned, kiwi fruit have this enzyme, and it will chop
Actinidin,
down.
the protein.
Kiwi fruit has this enzyme actinidin, and the actinidin will digest your dairy proteins, and it will stop tasting weird.
Oh. Well,
But if you want to have a meat marinade with kiwi fruit, go ahead.
yeah, someone actually told me that. Someone told me that they use kiwi fruits when they're marinating barbecue meats. But wait, but Simone, technically, doesn't that just mean that if we have it in a milkshake, that it starts the breakdown process for us? It starts the digestion for us quicker. Why would it be weird for it to be mixed together? Because won't
Because
we digest it anyways?
yeah, we will digest it, but you don't want to eat digested food.
So I don't want to eat milk that's been broken down.
No.
Now I'm curious why. What does it taste like? Would we be able to tell the difference?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
You can do an experiment if you want. Just put some milk or yogurt,
I might.
some fresh kiwi fruit, and then let it stand for a few hours. And
Oh, well, I'm not gonna milk and lettuce. I do have some yogurt. Curdled. No, is it curdled milk? Will it kind of become like curdled milk, Simone?
it will get. It is a bit like curdled milk because of the acid, but it will also get thinner and thinner over time because the whole structure changes.
Yeah. Fascinating. Oh, I'm going to have to try this. Simone, I'm going to have to try this. Simone, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm gonna go. Wait, Simone. So in order to do this accurately, how many kiwis do I need?
That's experimental, so
Okay, I'll do
the
this.
green kiwi fruit has a lot. No, it's pretty much it's time. So if you make a smoothie and drink it immediately, that's fine. But if you basically prepare it in the morning and then bring it to university, eh.
Oh, now okay. We're gonna try this. I will try this, Simone, and I will report back to you with pictures and videographic evidence of what it looks like. I'm really curious. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. In January, I believe we said 18th. I'll post stuff more. Kat's giving off mad curiosity vibes right now. I'm just gonna have jars of kiwi milk by the end of the day. I'm being called out by my audience. They know I'm like a kid, sometimes my ADHD, I'm just like, oh, idea, let's go, let's chase it. I will try this. But thank you so much, everyone, tuning in. In January, come back for episode 3, where we talk about her actual clinical research on 2 gold kiwi fruits a day. And for those of you who are huge nerds like me, the paper, if y'all are interested, is the 2 gold kiwi fruit daily for effective treatments of constipation in adults, a randomized clinical trial. So if any of you are dead curious, just quite literally Google it. And it's also open source because I was able to access it. And you can feel free to come back with questions or anything for Simone. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Simone, do you have any last questions before we close off this wonderful episode? No, she's good. She's really told us too much. She told us all her deepest, darkest secrets and her obsession with kiwi fruits. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and happiest birthday to Simone. We'll see you guys back in January. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Simone.